All right, thank you. So we're going to get started. My name is Irina Blumenfeld. I do web consulting for businesses, like web development and local search, and monthly updates and training. So this is the link to the slides, and I'll have the link to the slides at the end of the presentation as well. So I'm sure you've got a website on your mobile and you've seen something like this keep spinning and it's not loading. Think about how many seconds do you have patience to wait for it to load before you give up? How many seconds do you think you will wait? For the page to load on your mobile? 2 seconds? Anybody has more?
Depends how much you want to get the website.
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to get. 53% of people will leave if it hasn't loaded in 3 seconds. So half of the people will leave if the site has not loaded in 3 seconds or less. So what happens? Slow website. If you have a website that loads slow, you get lots of leads. People just don't want to wait. It's really bad for your SEO because Google uses speed in their search algorithm. So if the site loads faster, they'll rank you higher. You get higher bounce rate, so people just get frustrated. They don't go to other pages on your site, and they bounce off your site. So it increases your bounce rate, which is bad for your SEO because Google doesn't like high bounce rates. And people get really bad user experience. And you get decreased revenue. So how do you know how fast your site loads? There's different tools that you can use to test, and these are the more common. The top two, gtmetrics.com or Pingdom tools. They're just easy, straightforward. It just tells you how many seconds it takes for your site to load. And then Web Page Test gives you more details. So the first one was GTmetrix, so you just type in the URL. And then it gives you letter grades based on different factors, how fast your site loads. It gives you total page load time and page size. And then it gives you suggestions on what you can do to improve, why it could load faster. Web Page Test is my favorite tool. It's more detailed, but it's not as straightforward. So it gives you also letter grades based on different factors. It tells you if you're compressing your images, if you're using caching, which I'll talk about, and it gives you a waterfall chart, which is kind of like an X-ray of your page load. If you want to see what loads and in what order on your site, or what resources from what other sites you're loading, you can see it all on this waterfall chart, and if there are any bottlenecks. Also, where you see the red arrow, and it says Film Strip View, you can click on that, and it gives you the actual user experience, what the user sees on their screen when they load your site. So this is really nice because you only see on your own device. You don't know what your users are seeing. And with this tool, you can test it from different network connections, from different mobile devices, from different geographic locations, and then you can see what they see on their screen at every interval of time. So why the site could load slow is one reason could be hosting. Some hosting providers, they put a lot of different sites on the same server, and it could be cheaper, but it makes your site load slower. And if you have a lot of heavy unoptimized images, it will increase your loading time. Caching, if you're not utilizing caching, and I'll talk about it. Third parties, if you're loading a lot of extra third parties on your site, and how many plugins you're using. So first, how fast is fast enough for the site to load? The answer is it depends. It varies from industry to industry. Some industries where like media, for example, you rely on those ads, and you have to load all these things on your site. It will have a slower loading time. One way of testing how fast enough is how you stack up against your competition. So people tend to perceive, like if the site loads 20% faster than your competitor, that it's fast enough. So for example, if you take Walmart and Target website, which one do you think loads faster? So the way to test it is that webpagetest.org that I told you about. There's a tab that says Visual Comparison. So if you click on that, you put in the URL of each site, and then you can label it so you know what you're testing, and then you can start test. And here's the video. You can create a video of how it loads next to each other. So Target is on the right, it stopped loading at 5.3 seconds. Walmart is loading mostly. So because it has a slider, and so this is really great to show to somebody who they don't realize their site is slow, or you could show it to somebody who is a decision maker that see how it loads next to your competitor. And the reason Walmart was so slow, I think part of the reason is they had a big slider that was loading a lot of images, like the carousel on homepage. So the more images you load, the heavier your page will be, the slower it will be. And I know people like to use sliders still. I tell them to look at this. Should I use a carousel.com? It's an old site, but it still serves its purpose to see, and just try to not put so many images on the slider at least. So this chart is average page on the web right now, broken down by content type. And it's almost 4 megabytes. I think it's higher now because it's a few months old. But you can see half of the page in blue is images. So, and a little more than a quarter is video. This is an average page. And then the rest is style sheets, scripts, and fonts. So you could see that optimizing images is really important for your page to load faster. So when you upload images to your website, make sure they're optimized and compressed. And WordPress has different plugins that can automate this for you. So when you upload images to your site, it'll automatically be optimized. And what it does, when it compresses, it removes image metadata. So like how large your image is, when it was created, all those things you don't need to send to the web. It just takes extra space. And then the image will be a lot smaller. The top two are TinyPNG is very popular. It's a web interface. So it's not a plugin. So if you go tinypng.com in your browser, you'll see this panda bear, and it has a box that says drop your PNG or JPEG files right here. You can just drag and drop them from your computer, and it will compress it for you, and it will show you saved like 40% of the image size. And if you have like 20 images, for example, that adds up, and you really save a lot of image size. And there are plugins also that automate this process for you. Caching is really important. So I'm sure you're probably familiar with browser caching, which, when you go to a page, it stays in your browser cache. If you go back, it's already in the cache, so it will load faster. But there's other types of caching, object caching, page caching, mostly for the server. So, for example, if he goes to a page on the site, the server has to pull pieces of that page out of the database, put it together, and it takes time. And then she goes to the same page later on. The server doesn't have to do it because the page will already be stored in cache. So that's really important to speed up your page delivery, to activate caching. And some hosting providers, they have their own caching plugins that are optimized for their servers. Or if you want to use your own plugin, it's WP Rocket. It's a premium plugin. It's popular for caching. And WP, WP Super Cache is a free plugin made by Automatic. Third parties are things that you are loading onto your site from other sources that are not hosted on your server. So one example is ads. So they come from different sources, and if those sources are slow, it will take longer to show up on your site. So that will slow down your page delivery. This is another type of third party I've seen, weather. How many people go to a website to look at the weather? I've seen people loading weather on their website. This is just a third party that takes time to load on your site. It increases your page load time. And there are images, sometimes you load them from other sources, so the best thing is to save them on your computer and upload it to your site instead of making requests to other places. Analytics is another third party. Social media widgets, so if you have a Twitter feed or Facebook feed, that takes more time to show, because it takes time to pull all those resources from social media. And fonts and icons that are not hosted on your server also is another third party. So less is better when it comes to your website speed, and that applies if you have a lot of plugins. Some people have so many plugins they're not even using. All these plugins have requests for JavaScript files, style sheets. All of that takes time. So I recommend to go through your plugins and just remove the ones you're not using. So in summary, so these are the things that can affect your page load time significantly. Hosting, images, caching if you're not utilizing caching, third parties if you have a lot of third parties, and how many plugins you're using. And here's the link to the slides from the presentation, and you can tweet me, email me, ask me questions. Thank you. So. Anybody has any questions, feel free to ask.
Third party, like YouTube videos versus putting them on your site yourself?
Yeah, so
faster with YouTube? Or?
YouTube is great for managing your videos. There's a plugin for WordPress, so when you load a video on, sometimes people come to your page and they might not even click on the video, they might look for other information, but they have to wait for, it's not just the video, it's the pieces of the player that load. So there are plugins that take a screenshot of the video, the first slide of the video, so it kind of looks like the video in YouTube, but it's just like a little image of it. And when they actually want to view it, they click on it, then it loads.
What is that plugin called?
I can't remember. There's several plugins for that to speed up video delivery.
That would be a lot faster.
I can look it up and let you know.
Okay.
Lazy loader would be good for something like talking about.
Yeah, lazy load. Yeah.
As far as hosting,
Yeah.
which one would you recommend? No WP-Engine, which is it's great for WordPress, but very costly. But
Yeah. So hosting is everybody has different preference about hosting. Like I'm using, he might use a different hosting that I use. It depends on your needs and what your budget is. So we have a page on WP Orlando website that talks about hosting. So, and you can pick the one that works better for you. Yeah.
I had a question about content delivery networks. Which ones do you use, or which ones have you found that are
Yeah.
better than others?
That's a good question. So content delivery networks, what they do is if you have a high traffic site and you have people coming to your site from around the world, you want to use a content delivery network or a CDN where you upload all your images, all your files into a CDN, and then that CDN basically determines, oh, the user's coming from Japan. I'm going to serve those images from a server that's closest to them geographically, so it loads faster. Or the user is coming from Florida, I'll serve it from a different server. So I recommend using CDN for if you have high traffic sites, or if you have a lot of international visitors, definitely use a CDN. Cloudflare is very popular. They have a free CDN plan that's really popular to use. There are others too, premium CDNs, so it just depends on your purpose. Cloudflare is the easiest to set up. Yeah.
What would be like, is there a threshold to where Google, if your site's taking too long to load, where Google just starts penalizing you on SEO? Is there like a threshold that's not just about a user making it to your site or anything?
If there's a threshold for Google, I don't know about a threshold. I just know they use it in their search algorithm. So if you have a competitor and you rank about the same on all the other factors, but their site loads faster, he might be ranked higher than you because, its speed is important.
Right.
But I don't know.
So it's like you said, just 20% faster than your competitor.
Yeah, that's. Any other questions? No? All right. Thank you.